any idea.
That's better.
Okay,
You're talking about as far as how to,
how to actually write out the recommendation.
and that's weird because, you know, in the academy, they get a lot of report writing. And report writing is basically the facts and in order how you found out. And you're not adding much else, so, I'll have to get with the, figure out, I'm assuming they're still teaching the same course. But, I mean, this is one of the issues, supervisors should be reading all of these reports. And making sure that they make sense, they have all of the facts.
Yes,
And, just, I mean, it would probably be some, oversight on the.
this
with-
is something that Commander Norris asked us to do,
Okay,
because he said so many of the reports were so badly written.
okay, and, you know, well, when we get to me, I'll talk about some of the stuff that, I haven't seen because of where I was at, but. We can get back to that and I'll help you with that.
I'll get to you pretty soon, actually. If Commander Dietzel doesn't show up, then it's gonna be a very short meeting.
He's here.
Oh, you're here?
He's here. He's here.
Oh, hey, Commander Dietzel. It's mute.
Can you hear me?
I don't know.
You're on mute, sir.
Oh,
I'm not sure he can hear us.
let me call.
I can see this.
Okay.
Oh, Dick's here.
It was, just disappeared.
I see it.
Oh, there he is. He just moved.
Yeah, they do
funny
that.
how
They
that
move
changed.
people around. It's really weird.
Okay, can you hear us, Commander Dietzel?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
We're just getting through some of the business and then we'll turn to you. A small group tonight, which is kind of cool, actually, considering that it's like a private meeting with you. So that we'll come to that when we were talking about report writing. And one other recommendation that I wanted to look into is a long time ago, a woman came up to me and she said that she had had a robbery or a burglary and she called the police. And when the officers came, they made her feel terrible. They just made her feel awful.
She,
Said they were rude, they were empathetic. And I know that sometimes other situations that come up is that one other situation that somebody told me about is they called because there was a gentleman who was disturbing the block. And but when the police came, the gentleman was quiet down and the neighborhood was, why don't you arrest him? Why don't you arrest him? And instead of explaining it to them, why they couldn't arrest him, they just left. So it's about comportment. It's about how you address the public.
I agree, and in those situations, if that comes up, I strongly encourage people to file a complaint, so it can be addressed at that time. And everyone's like, well, I don't want to get involved. That's
Yeah.
how we fix things. That's how we make our department better and the officers better, is by getting feedback, whether it's good or bad. I mean, if we have encounters with citizens and it went well, we gladly accept that feedback. I know some people are upset about getting bad remarks or
Mhm.
being told they're rude, but that's why we have that complaint process. I mean, I encourage people, if I feel like I offended them, I want them to complain on me so I can fix whatever I did wrong. And I know the officers don't see it that way, but being in this job for so long, people get upset, people, you know, cops come to work and they're having a bad day. You know, everyone has a bad day, but you don't take it out on the people you're serving. So I encourage any complaints that they would like to fill out. If they don't want to fill out an actual complaint, they can contact the
Or
supervisor.
they can get onto
They
the,
can get onto the
app.
website, the app. And fill out a complaint. That way, a supervisor or any APD employee can help that person fill out a complaint. or if Rowan came to me and says, I was upset during this call,
Mhm,
this is what happened,
mhm,
I just want to make the complaint.
mhm.
And if they wanted to do, then I would have to take the information you gave me and fill out a complaint and enter it myself. So it doesn't get lost in the sauce. Again, it makes us better. And then if it comes out that, this person is lying, or there was no policies violated,
Mhm.
and maybe it was a training issue, and we have to teach them how to be more emotionally supportive of someone in crisis, then we can work on the training aspect. If there was no policy violation and nothing actually occurred and someone's just mad at the police, then we can address it that way and close it out. And we'll give that person that complained the explanation, hey, we completed this investigation and we found this, that, or the other, or we found nothing. And you can always appeal that.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's important because it's a survey,
Well,
Good or bad.
actually, Commander Dietzel, who's gone again.
I can do something. Go ahead and talk.
Well, this relates to CIU,
Yeah.
because CIU does that in-person training with actors and stuff.
yes.
And one thing that I was thinking about recommending is that regular officers get the same kind of training about how to interact with the public.
So all of us in the department are crisis intervention trained. And then
So they
there's,
all get that.
Yes,
But that's
it's a
with
requirement.
people in crisis.
well,
I'm talking about just people in the
Just
street,
day-to-day
just
talk.
day-to-day talking.
and a lot of the crisis intervention training and enhanced crisis intervention training is a lot of learning how to listen. That's the problem. I mean, I hate to say it, but the younger generation anymore, they don't want to listen. They just
So
want to
young.
tell you.
You're saying that.
Yeah, I just missed 22 years. So it's frustrating, and
Yeah.
then some people misinterpret it. But we do get a lot of training, and like my downtown guys, when I was a patrolman and a sergeant and lieutenant downtown, I would make it a point for the FTOs to take their officers down there. Whether they were in the valley or not, you're gonna come to the valley.
It's a field training officer.
Correct, sir. Sorry about the abbreviations are a
I'm
lot.
just asking for,
Yeah, I got you, a field training officer. So if they have a brand new officer that doesn't have any life experience, barely turned 21 in the academy and was homeschooled and never had a job, or not saying that's bad, but they just don't have any communication with the outside world very much. So I make them go down there and just start up conversations with drunks, because those are the hardest people to talk to. And it makes you a better listener, it makes you a better speaker, it makes you easier to engage with folks. So that's just one of the things I did, and
Mhm.
I haven't seen that. And I'll get back to where I've been, but haven't seen that for the past couple of years, because I haven't really had to deal with younger officers. But it's important that we talk to everybody and make it a point to go out and talk to everybody on the street. It makes you better at speaking, and people feel more comfortable with dealing with the police.
my other observation is anytime you're in a situation where the police have to be called, you're stressed.
Yeah, and
Absolutely. I don't care if it's being pulled over for a traffic or something happened in your neighborhood or whatever. It's stressful to have to get to talk to people, have to talk to officers.
the uniform is scary, and as Rowan said, the training that we go through is for people in crisis. Well, I drop my phone and I have a crack, that's a crisis. If you lost somebody in your family, that's a crisis to you. Anything could be a crisis. I broke my favorite number 2 pencil. Well, go get another one. Well, no, that could end somebody's life or
Yeah.
ruin their life if that was their favorite pencil from elementary or something like that. So the crisis intervention training and enhanced crisis intervention, it does play into all of that stuff with communication and the 7 active listening skills, and it helps us be better at dealing with people. Again, there are some people that are frustrating to deal with because they don't understand, they don't have the experience in communicating with people. But that's where their training officers and the senior officers in their squad should push them out and make them talk to everybody.
Do you have a feel for what percentage of field officers are crisis intervention trained?
I don't, but I know Commander Dietzel could probably tell you those numbers off the top of his head.
Okay,
Yeah, 100% feel. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So 100% of the field is basically CIT trained. So that's the CIT 40 hours that they were talking about earlier with the professional actors. And I actually did the numbers for June this morning, and we're at 50% of the field is ECIT. So that's an enhanced kind of additional 8-hour class on top of that. That's voluntary. So these officers are taking that on as kind of like an extra duty in addition to their normal kind of field patrol stuff. And we're at 50% there.
And one of the additional things that some officers, and I don't know, if Matt will be able to say this, but crisis negotiation trained, that's, I mean, it's similar, but it's mainly dealing with somebody that you're not having a face-to-face conversation with. You know, we have a lot of contact over the phone with individuals that are barricaded in homes or having a bad day and want to kill themselves or kill somebody that they know. And if you go to the CNT classes, whether it's through APD, the FBI, it's another tool. But again, that one's not a mandatory one. I think it would be really hard to mandate all of us to go through it because it's an expensive course. It's a lengthy course, and I mean, with some of the other mandatory training we have now, I think ECIT is a very good enhancement, and that's why it's ECIT, but an enhancement to the basic portion because they'll grill you in the ECIT course. I mean, it's a lot tougher than just a basic 40-hour class. They throw 40 hours into 8 hours and you leave and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And you come out of it so much more skilled and patient. And that's one of the things that people lack anymore is patience. And you know, the way I say it is I get paid all day. I will help you no matter how long it takes to figure this out. I'm not in no rush to get to calls. When I get dispatched to your house, and that's the way I want my people to feel is you are who I'm dealing with. And the problems you've got, that's what I'm gonna help you with. We get it scored away, good. Not, we're gonna keep working. Whether I have to come back or continue working.
I got a general question, and then you mentioned about, you know, when you get pulled over by police or they get called in a particular area. Is there still an idea of the general walking the beat? Like, you know, like Old Town, I live right by Old Town, a block away from it. I think that in that particular situation, interacting with the police would be a lot less threatening, right? Because they're just kind of, in a sense, looking around, saying hi to folks, stuff like that, versus there for a specific reason, like there is some sort of issue that they need to address, that they were called there. So there's this idea of walking the beat or riding a bike. I've seen bikes occasionally by police. I think all of those are less intimidating to the public. So I'm just curious if you had mentioned taking young officers to areas and having them talk to folks, but just what about if you're just wanting to, if your particular area is the downtown area, are they made available to kind of go down there and walk, you know, walk around and just interact and say hi to folks and stuff like that, not in a way that's threatening, because I think several folks had mentioned that if you do get pulled over right away, you know, your stress level goes up tremendously. So I'm just curious if you guys have thought about that.
So I'll make it quick so that Matt can talk and then we can talk about that in a little while, but I agree. You know, I was a bike cop and it's easier to talk to folks on bike or on foot. We've kind of gone away with that and one of the main reasons is because of manpower. You know, we have a lot of calls for service that are holding in certain areas. And I mean, I can have a patrolman on foot here and then we have a priority one call in the far North Valley, like tramway, and they have to run to their car, get in the car and then travel across town. And that causes significant time delay. I know with our downtown unit, we have foot patrol officers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the DP unit. We just opened up a position for 2 more. So the swing shift guys will have 5 officers and day shift will have 4 plus sergeants and a lieutenant. And that's mainly for the downtown area, like between Harris and Silver, 1st through 8th, sometimes up to Broadway and up to 12. But I would like to get back to having my bike officers on bikes through Old Town. I mean, we used to cruise through Old Town all the time. it was cool because we always got ice cream or something, but it was fun to interact. I never been to the rattlesnake. I rode in there on a bicycle. He's like, come check it out. So I agree, and I'm gonna push to get bikes back on their bikes and ride their bikes all the time. So, you know, bicycle officers should be able to patrol from I-40 south to about Ridge and the freeway to the river on a bicycle and get to wherever you need to go pretty quickly. But I want to do some more patrols, directed patrols on a bicycle. One, because if you are up to no good, you're not going to expect somebody on a bicycle anymore because bike cops, you rarely see it. Because they've been too busy, which I mean, that I understand that, but you're still working it and you're still doing good things on a bike. But it's a community policing aspect. It's important as well. Seeing and talking to the officers that are in your beat and in your neighborhoods, getting to know their name. So I want to try and bring that back. I know manning is an issue everywhere, and I say it's an excuse, but it's not an excuse. We still got to work through some of the problems we have with manning. But I am going to bring that back with bicycles.
Okay.
At least, I mean, walking patrol is a little harder right now, but bicycles are important.
We're mainly going to be talking about that.
Okay,
I just wanted to say real quick that it's thanks to the Valley CPC that there are bike cops at all. We made the
You guys brought them back?
recommendation, we brought them back, yeah, that was
They were-
about
they were
6,
gone.
7 years ago, they were gone and we made a recommendation, and brought them back, so recommendations can be, matter of fact, it stands to this day as the most successful recommendation.
Which one?
The bike cop, we
Okay.
recommended the bike
They
cop
took them away.
coming back.
for a few years, and CPC here brought it back. And now I think they're back in 3 area commits.
Okay. Commander Dietzel, and apologies for calling you Lieutenant Dietzel, that's what you always were to me. I do apologize. Something's come up since I invited you. So I think we need to, yes, the little things come up. And I guess I have some MHRAC related questions for that, is that wasn't MHRAC supposed to be consulted before the announcement was made that Coronado Park would close?
So that's interesting. It's an interesting question. It's not come up at MHRAC yet. In fact, that announcement was before our last move. I will say that MHRAC's jurisdiction kind of relays on the police department's response to homelessness, not necessarily the entire city's. That's being ironed out kind of at the court level right now. So I think until we have clear direction on that, it's kind of a jurisdictional thing. Now, if an easy yes would be, let's say that part of this plan is to use the police department to, I don't know, somehow facilitate that closure. I think that might be something that MHRAC would look into.
Well, police will be facilitating that closure, won't they?
Not necessarily. I can explain that here when we get.
Okay,
to
let's
the court.
explain that right now.
Oh.
Let's have Commander Dietzel explain what MHRAC is and what it does, because a lot of people don't know. So go forward.
Sure, I could bring up a quick PowerPoint if you guys want to take a look at that, or I can just talk about it generally, whatever's good for the board.
Got a PowerPoint? You can get it?
Yep, go ahead and bring it up, sir.
Excellent. Give me just a second to kind of mess with it. All right, can everybody see that?
Beautiful.
Yes,
Excellent. Okay. There's my contact information. I'll send this out to everybody here as soon as we're done. This is a very basic PowerPoint just to kind of keep me on track so I don't take up too much time. So right now we have 2 co-chairs. We have Rachel Biggs, who is from Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless, and Max Kaufman, he's an attorney for Disability Rights New Mexico. These 2 have been great for us. They have a lot of kind of interest and authority in these realms in terms of homelessness, and also making sure that we're treating as a department people with behavioral health issues correctly. The board also has an additional, I believe, 18 members. We recently added some more people. People from my group, CIT and Coast. Community Safety Department also has a representative. Family Community Services, their Director of Behavioral Health Services is on there, and a representative from the Fire Department. We also have the director of the PES at UNMH, so the Psychiatric Emergency Room, Albuquerque Ambulance. NAMI is a huge partner for us. I'll talk about them a little bit more in a minute. And Mexico Solutions. We also have some others in other places around the city, a lot of smaller providers. Just real quick paraphrasing of what's in the CASA. I didn't want to throw the whole statement up here about everything is, so I paraphrased the heck out of these. But each of these paragraphs is kind of giving MHRAC their marching orders to give you all an idea of what they do. The big one is 111 there. So they kind of analyze our policy and training here at APD and make sure that we're up to date on kind of what the best practices are out there when you're going to these types of calls. 112 directs who is on MHRAC. There's some directions there of people who are acquired. You'll see NAMI on there again, Disability Rights to Mexico. UNMH is our biggest partner in terms of the hospitals and destinations where we take people who are experiencing crisis. 113 is where you consider new responses for these types of calls. To get back to your question about Coronado Park, this is where that argument probably could be made that any kind of major change like that would have to have MHRAC's not approval, but the opportunity to review the plan. So that's kind of where that would live, would be a 113. 114 is all about navigating HIPAA and confidentiality issues. This one has been a difficult one for all of us to get in compliance with, because at the end of the day, you know, if it's a law enforcement issue, HIPAA is already kind of out the window because it's an emergency situation. So this was one of those paragraphs that wasn't very well thought out on either side if this thing was negotiated originally. So we've struggled to meet it over the last 6 or 7 years. 115 is all about using real life scenarios and actors in our trainings. One of the great things that APD has done over the last few years is developed a lot of reality-based training. And I don't know if this board has been through that, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about. You gain a
Which
ton
one,
of
your training or the reality-based training? Because Edwina and I have been through both of them, so.
both of them. Yes, and
Yeah.
I think 115 is where that really kind of lives in terms of MHRAC's responsibility. And then lastly, 116 is all about finding new resources, making connections, and making sure that we're doing everything we can for people when we do encounter them. So how we meet those goals is we actually have 2 subcommittees. You see up there at the top, it's getting to be a long name because we've combined a few subcommittees at this point. So information sharing is all about kind of that confidentiality, HIPAA navigation. Policy is the big charge of this subcommittee. So basically this subcommittee reviews every policy or special order that has to do with homelessness, our response to that, and the larger thing is behavioral health crisis. So, you know, how do you respond to someone who is diagnosed with schizophrenia and doesn't recognize you're a police officer? All of those things kind of go into the policy review. And lastly, resources is a huge thing. I will say that Albuquerque, just in the time that I've been involved in this area since 2018 in the unit, our resources in the city have improved a lot. I will say the city has done a lot, and also Bernalillo County, thanks to that behavioral health tax that passed, I want to say in 2016, 2015, has made a huge difference. That tax has really allowed the county to stand up a lot of supportive things like, you know, the tiny homes is one thing. The care campus is probably the biggest and most emblematic thing that's really improved. And when this settlement agreement was signed in 2014, we didn't have any of that. And so basically the officers had, you know, 3 options: jail when appropriate, the hospital when appropriate, or nothing. And so this funding has kind of opened that door up quite a bit, because now we have the care campus. There's some detox options there that we didn't have before. So I always like to talk about our partners with the county because they've done a lot for us. And lastly, and probably mostly important, or one of the most important things about this subcommittee is they help us do the resource. So I'll pull that up right now so you all can see. I realize it's probably really small and crammed, because it's really small and cramped. Basically, this card has become kind of the gold standard for immediate assistance. So let's say that you need help with an overnight shelter. It's all sorted by where these items live, what their hours are, who's open, who's closed. During COVID, this thing was a huge help to people because resources were constantly opening and closing. And so it was hard to know where you could get help because, you know, you'd have one outbreak, let's say at Steel Bridge, and they'd close for a week. And so just having the phone numbers was a big deal for people. I will say that this resource has gotten to the point where in May, I ordered 5,000. They're all gone. I'm about to do another resource card run. So they're being used by the Community Safety Department, by APD officers, by AFR. We dropped off a ton at the schools. It's kind of becoming, you know, the quick, you know, resource reference guide for the city. There's a really good one online that I'll plug in the chat, but a lot of people who need these resources don't have internet connectivity. And so that's why it's still a paper form in 2022. But I'll throw that in the chat here as I kind of finish up. The other subcommittee handles all the training that we do. This subcommittee meets every other month, and this is where we do deep dives on lesson plans, PowerPoints, and training videos, including like the scripts to make those videos. Lately, we've done a lot of training virtually, especially with the pandemic. We were doing a lot of Power DMS videos. So just so everyone knows, Power DMS is how APD distributes policy and some training. Basically, every officer reads the policy and then signs off on it once they're done. It's kind of an accountability measure / making sure that's all in one place. I can tell you that this platform is amazing because you can be literally about to drive to a call and you can research what does the policy say I need to do on this call to make sure I check all those boxes. And so I really like to talk about the policy distribution platform a lot because it changed the way that we kind of navigate these calls. Back in the day when I first got promoted to sergeant, we had paper binders that we had to update every time something changed. And it didn't happen very often because that's a pain. But the nice thing about this policy platform is it's all digital, it's all right there. We all have internet connection. It's nice. Getting back to the training subcommittee, when we first went through the settlement agreement, the training subcommittee worked tirelessly to basically help us develop that 40-hour class, because prior to that, we had nothing. They helped us completely design the class, and now the bones of that class are now the national standard. Basically, the Bureau of Justice Assistance took our class, stripped out the Albuquerque stuff, and the things that are in there is the basis of the national BJA class. And this training subcommittee really helped that happen. We wouldn't have gotten there without them. This training subcommittee has, you know, social workers, the director of New Mexico Solutions is part of this. We have people with lived experience who are part of this training subcommittee. And they kind of tell us, hey, the police came, did this when I was in crisis, and this worked well, but what that other officer did was not so great. And so that's why the training subcommittee is kind of like the gold standard for us, because it keeps us up to date and it makes sure we're doing the right thing on the right call. Lastly, I'm going to plug the MHRAC meeting as itself. So we have the big meeting, which is kind of the entire board and the public, similar to this format. It's the third Tuesday of every month, 5 to 7. We're still on Zoom for now. I'm thinking after seeing how you all are doing your meeting that we're getting closer to having a format similar to this. I like the way that you have it set up. I love the cameras. This is great. I may be stealing some of this because this looks great. But if you're interested in attending, the CIT admin's email is on there, and I'll send this out to everybody as well. Or you can always email or call me, and I'll get you on the list as well. That list has grown to be several hundred people at this point. It's not unusual for our meetings to have 100 people there on Zoom, which is why I've been so reluctant to move it back in person, because the turnout is just so incredible. But long story short, that's MHRAC. It's been a huge help to us because, like I said, we don't have necessarily the expertise to know what's going on and what changes are being made across the country on the clinical side. We're very good about pulling policies from the departments, but we don't have access to things like medical journals. We don't have access to things like studies. We don't have access to things like new techniques, but the clinical side does. And so MHRAC kind of allows that information to trickle to us in a way that we can digest and understand without having to go through all that medical lingo to get there. They've been really, really helpful to us.
Can you put that back? I need to get that email again. I'm trying to,
Of course.
Here it is.
Can you see?
at CABQ. Yeah, thank you.
And if I'll throw it in the chat too, along with that resource guide. And if anyone's interested, if you just type MHRAC into Google, the first hit's going to be us because there's only 2 of us. Cleveland has one and we have one. But since your location's here, it's going to come up as us. It is kind of a big deal. The mayor of Las Vegas, New Mexico approached our co-chair, and that area is going to try to stand up an MHRAC based on our model. It's starting to spread a little bit, which is, you know, one of the purposes of the settlement agreement is to make sure that you have a police department who is professional and knows what they're doing and can train that out to other departments. This is just one more example of that. And I'm sure you've seen that with your own experience on the CPCs. Other cities are going to start mimicking what you're doing.
I have to say that MHRAC's always been golden on the monitors report. And we sometimes CPC hasn't come across so good in other organizations. So it's kind of like the Brady Bunch. You guys are Marsha. The rest of us don't come up to your standard. But I remember going around going, MHRAC, 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 MHRAC. But the meetings are amazing. I haven't been for a while. I haven't been since the free dinners. So yeah, but will you be there when you go back to your physical location? Will you be at the Rock?
So Danny Watley did retire,
Yeah.
and the new gentleman that's there has offered, and I think we're going to take him up on that once we're all kind of comfortable doing that. It's just I have a really hard time with, well, you know, you've been to these meetings in the dead of winter when it's the
Yeah.
board, one guy in the audience, and my detectives. And so having everybody show up on Zoom has just been so much easier. But we do lose a lot of that. Danny used to call it like fellowship time while you're eating. For me to, you know, get with somebody one-on-one and like address a personal concern, we do miss that. And that was huge when we could do that.
Yeah, that was amazing. Not to mention the free food, the free very good food. But back to Coronado Park. What role do you see MHRAC playing in this? This is.
You know, I'm not sure. I do think that as a decision is made as far as what's to become of Coronado Park in terms of, you know, I heard the mayor talking about a couple of things that it could be. One of them was an expansion of the fire station there. I know that's a busy station. Another one was maybe it's a safe outdoor space. I know that conversation will go to MHRAC in terms of how that looks and what that decision is made. I will say I had the fortune to go ahead and travel to Denver with the city to see their safe outdoor space. And it was run in a very responsible way. I was impressed with it. Will it work here? It has to be very carefully executed. And this is not something that you can just throw up and just have it work. You need to have some vetting. You need to think about things like security and plumbing and all the little things that go into running a mini city. And so I'm confident the city will make the right choice here and kind of go that route. But I will say what we saw in Denver, they had it figured out. That place was well run.
Our meeting last month was about safe open spaces, and Dr. Aldine was one of the presenters, and she showed us a slideshow, a PowerPoint with pictures of the Denver ones, and talked also about Hope Village down in Las Cruces. No, not Hope Village. What's it called? The one in front? In Las Cruces, it's called Hope
I-
Camp.
Oh, Hope Village. Yes, I have not been down there. But I hear good things about that model too, but I haven't seen it.
But still, at some point in August, and probably in early August, Coronado Park is going to be disgorged onto the surrounding area. And there's two ways of looking at that, how awful it's going to be for the people that have been in Coronado Park. They had something of a base. And then how difficult it's going to be for the surrounding communities to deal with this sudden influx. I have driven past Coronado Park when they do the cleaning every other Wednesday, and it's like a tidal wave of people leaving the park and going. And don't you have some extra problems in the downtown area on the cleaning Wednesdays?
No, the biggest problem we have is people wandering around in the road. And when they leave the park, you have a lot of them that go to the dirt lot across from the fire station and set up camp for the next 24 hours. And then they'll return. And then you'll have some that just kind of meander around and walk on the road. Whether it's them not paying attention, a mental health issue, substance abuse issue. That's the majority of the calls we're getting. We do get some calls from surrounding businesses and neighbors on Wednesdays when we do the cleaning. But it's not as many as you would think. We are looking at the possibility of, or what the possibilities are going to be of the increase in call volume once the park is officially closed and a gate goes up and no one actually can go back into the park. I know the city is looking at possibly using the dirt lot across from the fire station. I'm not sure what that looks like. That's and to get back to your question about police, that's not a police matter.
Yeah,
It's more of a family community services, ACS,
yeah.
the administration, MHRAC, that's some stuff that they're gonna have to come up with, but we will assist with any type of outreach that we can. If we are called to a business in the neighborhood
Right.
or residents in the neighborhood because someone's either passed out or sleeping on their property, we'll ensure that they have the resources. And we will offer those businesses the ability to place no trespassing signs. If that's what they wish. And, you know, I'm not, homelessness is not a crime,
Yeah,
but going onto somebody's property just because you don't want to go somewhere else is a crime. It's a problem to be on someone's private property. So we're gonna address some of those issues and hopefully we can get them the resources. I mean, as Carol Pierce from Family Community Services said during the press conference, they have enough beds, they have enough resources. There's a ton of people with housing vouchers that refuse to go to get their housing voucher because there's rules. They can't bring certain things in. They can't bring their 13 shopping carts to these places.
yeah,
They can't drink alcohol, they can't have drugs, they can't have loud parties or whatever. And talking to some of the individuals that lived at Coronado Park for the past couple of years, that's why they don't take a housing voucher. They have one,
yeah.
but they don't want it because there's rules. And we're trying to get past that and not necessarily entice them, but get them to understand that it's safer. And one of our biggest problems with Coronado Park is criminals coming in, making it those vulnerable folks victims of human trafficking, drug trafficking. We've had some sexual assaults. We've had a ton of, I think we've had 16 stabbings. We had one last week there. We've had 5 homicides in the past couple of years, just at Coronado Park. For thousands and thousands of fentanyl pills, pounds of methamphetamine that are going into the park and then being sent out into the surrounding neighborhoods. So our model is going to be, you know, family community services, ACS, and solid waste kind of working together as a team. APD is going to be supporting them on any type of security role or response to police calls for service related to people that have no longer have no ability to stay in the park. But again, I mean, we're going to do it as a group. It's going to be a collaborative effort to between a ton of different entities in the city. We're not just throwing them out. I mean, we are offering them the services. We are offering them the help and the ability and stability. But they have to be receptive to it. They have to want to take part of getting better and having a better life and a better future. As Commander Dietzel said earlier, I don't know what the outcome will be and the final decision as far as what Coronado Park will be. Will it be a park again? Because right now you drive by and it doesn't look like a park anymore. It's not what I'm used to. It's not what I mean, I grew up here. I used to climb on the train there when it was full of grass and green trees. And I want that back. But if they decide not to put a park there, that won't be an APD decision. That'll be an administration. But I mean, we'll support whatever the community and the administration decides to do. But again, that the police function in that is more of a security and enforcement of the law violations that are occurring in or around the park currently, and those that are preying on the vulnerable. And then when those people can't use the word displaced because I mean, it's park, but when they're moved out of the park, and we'll have to help deal with the situations that come up with the businesses and residents in the neighborhood.
Do you have an idea of how many folks actually visit that park on a daily basis?
So visit or stay there as a resident?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Okay, so right now, I mean, with ACS and FCS's numbers and contacts, they go there weekly and they do outreach and try and get people to turn in their tent and move into an apartment, move into a home, move into a hotel. They gauge that between 60 and 120 people are residing there. During the day, a lot more people come. And then closer to night, because the West Side Emergency Shelter, the bus pickup, one of them is there, and that's the main pickup. So a lot more people that usually go to the West Side Emergency Shelter will pile up and stand there, and then they'll decide, you know what, I'm gonna hang out with my friend tonight and sleep in the tent and not go up there. So there's a lot of that, and I've talked to some of the folks that live there. And they said the same. They're like, yeah, some days I just don't want to go up there because I want to be able to drink a beer and I want to do this, and hang out with my buddies. It's easy for these folks that are criminals that are picking on our vulnerable community to come to a large group and then pick on a group at once and show how big and bad they are to a large group. But when people are spaced out, I mean, it's a lot lonelier for the unhoused individuals, and I mean, it is a sense of community because I see them go from tent to tent and structure to structure and hang out and talk and converse. But if they're kind of spread out and not necessarily in one area that's not necessarily under control, like Commander Dietzel was saying, where security protocols are, certain rules and requirements, then they're probably a lot less likely to be preyed upon by these groups that are looking at large groups to extort or traffic or provide drugs to.
Are these criminal gangs, or I mean, I guess my question is, once they close down the park, are the ones that are doing the criminal activity, are they going to spread out to the surrounding areas now that there's not this
One
easy
centralized
access
location. And
location?
that's one thing we're looking at. I mean, from what I've been informed, that the people that are coming in and victimizing these folks are usually not staying in the park. I've been told that there could be someone staying in the park or a friend of somebody else that says, hey, you know, I've got these guys hooked on fentanyl. So if you give me my fix, I'll make sure you get a lot of sales. If they're not able to come to one centralized location and sell a bunch of stuff or sell guns or extort people or traffic people, then they're probably going to go out and look for another large group. I hate to say that, but I mean, they might, because it's easier to get everybody at once and get people hooked on dope or committing crimes at once under fear of threat from they're gonna, if you don't do this, I'm gonna find your family and kill you, or I'm gonna kill you or your kids or something like that. I'll be honest, it's probably gonna spread out throughout the city if there's not one large area to go. And I mean, it's scary one way or another. But at least it's easier to kind of dissuade somebody to target folks like that, because you know, when police drive by Coronado Park, there's a lot going on. We don't know what's going on unless, I mean, we have the ability to go at every tent and, hey, are you being drug traffic, sex traffic? And for the most part, the minute we show up at the park, everything stops. But if we have officers cruising the area and there's a car that's gonna stop by an encampment that's got 1 or 2 tents, and they see the police car coming, they're probably more likely of going away than hanging out at the tent. So it's a lot of stuff that the department and all the community groups, as well as the administration and our departments within the city are going to be working on over the next, I'd say, a couple months. But it's going to be a work in progress. And again, like I said, I'm here to support whatever decisions the administration makes and help the community kind of deal with whatever comes afterwards, whether that's good or bad. I'll be there to support them, and so will my officers. And I know the administration from APD is the same way. We're ready to go and help however we can.
Commander Dietzel, has the CIU had any calls to Coronado Park?
That's funny you mentioned that. So as part of this kind of slow moving out that's going on, my team and ACS, Community Safety Department, is going to be out there a lot. In fact, Monday, we have our first kind of round of, hey, this is coming. You know this is coming. What do we do next? Is it hotel vouchers? Where can we take you? What do we do? And so there's going to be a lot of that between now and whenever that eviction date. I use that word eviction, you know, it moved a long time. Whatever that's going to be, we're going to be out there a lot. And, you know, community safety is going to be out there way more than my group, I would imagine, but we're going to be there supporting them. This is going to be one of those things that I know everyone's really freaking out about the fact that, well, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? The population that's kind of causing these problems, the massive fentanyl dealing, the violence, this population didn't just appear because of Coronado Park. They've always been around. We just didn't see them this clearly. They were in hotels, and I'm sure you all can think of the hotels that they were in. That's where they were at. If you recall last year, we had a ton of homicides in hotels, talking about lower end kind of motels. There's a reason why those have gone down and why Coronado Park has become this explosion in terms of violent crime. It's because that's where they've kind of migrated to. So, you know, I am the mental health guy, I'm the homelessness guy here at APD, but at the same time, I cannot drive by Coronado Park and think of anything but a humanitarian crisis when I see it, what that looks like. And so that's something to keep in mind. This population didn't just appear overnight. They're going to go somewhere, and they're probably going to go back to the places that they were, and that was these, you know, these problem motels. And, you know, as bad as that sounds, the city has some mechanisms to close down problem properties like that. So I mean, there's remedies outside of the police department. There's code enforcement. There's the ADAPT program that lives in the fire department, which has to do with kind of closing those things down. It's not just kind of an APD homelessness issue. There's other things attached to it.
Okay, there are a couple of questions, one by Council Member Jackie Ritz. And this has been something I've been wondering also. A lot of people have said one of the reasons the homeless don't want to go to shelters is because of their things. They don't want to leave their things. So she asks, are there places for people to store their valuables if the unhoused go to a shelter? Does the city have any plans?
There is. Family and Community Services actually has some storage availability now for those that go to, whether it's a West Side Shelter or a housing voucher. Space is limited now. I mean, those that have 10 or 12 carts aren't going to be able to get all of their stuff stored at once. Carol Pierce, the director of FCS, is working on getting some additional storage availability. And I think now that we go, forward with the closure of the park, they're gonna make that happen a little quicker, I believe. So more individuals have the ability to store their items. They're, you know, it's frustrating for me, like if I arrest somebody that's unhoused for whatever reason, they go to jail. Well, I have to figure out what to do with all of their belongings. And you know, sometimes a lot of it is food and things like that, that I can't tag into evidence because we can't store food in our evidence. So I ask, hey, is there anybody here that you feel comfortable with me leaving your items? And then I'll get that person's information. And I've done that a ton of times. And it's never really knocked on plastic. It's never bitten me in the butt for any reason, like come back and say, oh, that guy stole all my stuff. If they say no, absolutely not, then we have to go through everything and document what's in there. If it's jewelry, change, we have to count all the money out. If it's food, it goes in the trash. We document that we trashed it. If it's something sharp that it's got blood on a biohazard issue, we document it and dispose of it correctly. But with the FCS stuff, if they're able to get that additional storage or using the storage they have now, they have the ability to lock it up and no one can touch it until that person comes back and says, hey, I'd like to gather my belongings the next day, or whenever they come back to town from the West Side Shelter or wherever they're staying. If they get a voucher and they stay there for a week or a month, they're able to come back and get their belongings. They can kind of come and go as they please. Like if they're at a shelter or a hotel and they're like, oh man, I've been here a week, I forgot something. They'll work it out where they can go get belongings and come back. So I think it's a good thing now that they're working on it for long-term and a lot larger volume than what is expected. The administration is working on a list of what's personal property and what's not, because you've got a guy with, I think he had like 7 wood pallets. And it's like, that's my personal property. Well, you can't take it with you. How are you gonna carry it? I don't know. They're mine. Well, if we put you somewhere, you can't take those with you, and then we can't put that in a storage bin somewhere. So they're trying to figure that out now, to figure out what's considered personal property, what could be stored somewhere else. If there's a local church or facility that would be willing to store, like one of the gentlemen has 2 pallets full of bicycles. I don't know where he got the bicycles, but they're bicycles in parks. And he wraps them up with saran wrap and he has a pallet jack and he drags them around town. And I'm like, I don't know where I can put those. I can't put those in a storage bin. So that's something they're working on now as far as, and I believe they'll work with CIU and MHRAC and trying to figure out, I mean, because could mean the world to them. And I don't want to deprive somebody of what they believe is our personal property, but we have to kind of balance what we can and can't take care of.
And Sarah Malone asks, are the drug traffickers predominant with gang members? How many gangs are there at this point in Wells Park?
So, I mean, you know, Wells Park has had a gang. Yeah, it's had a gang. I haven't had any dealings with Wells Park gang members in forever. That was, I mean, that's a long time ago. That I'm assuming there's still some Wells Park gang members around, but you know, gang members anymore aren't what we think of gang members. I mean, a lot of them are somebody that says, hey, let's go rob somebody today or mob them and take what they got. And then people associate with their violence with being a gang. Gangs are usually organized and they have a ranking system and you have to do certain things to get in, and that doesn't happen as much as it used to. You know, the cartels will take vulnerable folks and turn them into drug traffickers, and people look at them as gang members. They're not necessarily gang members, they're just scared for their life, or they're addicted to dope and they're just being used. I don't think it's the majority of the drug issue in and around Tornado Park and mainly downtown. I don't think that is a gang related issue. I think it's just individuals that have created their wealth as being a drug distributor, and they think it's easy to pick on somebody that's down the street, down and out, and having a rough time, and hey, I'll feed you these if you do this. And that's kind of where it's at. I don't think there's any organized gang activity related to that, specifically into the downtown area that I know of.
I had a question for the commander. You said that the Denver safe
Outdoor space,
house or
safe outdoor space.
what has that done to the homeless population? As a are there folks actually starting to use a housing, or did the homeless just move away from that area into their neighborhoods?
So Denver's project is very small scale. So to give you an idea of how this looked, and that's why I'm just so impressed with it. So to get into one of those safe outdoor spaces, the whole thing is fenced. There's kind of big, they weren't vines, but think of some kind of greenery lining the entire inside, so you can't see in and you can't see out necessarily. But this thing is very access controlled. To get in, you have to be involved in case management. You can use narcotics inside your tent, but you can't distribute it to other people. You can't walk around using it. You have to be in your same spot. I liken it to, I don't know, somebody getting drunk in their house on a Friday night. That's kind of the way that Denver was describing it to us. Now, has it impacted their homeless population? I don't know, because you had, the week that we were there, a large group of encampments had kind of sprung up there on the green between the governor's mansion and the mayor's mansion. And it was like this big deal because they were getting evicted. They were getting kicked out of that area. So at the end of the day, the great thing about safe outdoor spaces, there's two things. Some people aren't ready to live in a house yet. They've been on the streets for so long that they're used to the tent. It's their comfort. They've gone to that. That's their life now. This is how I live. You know, quit trying to make me go to the shelter. So a safe outdoor space will give them an opportunity to be in that tent in a place that's permitted, that's somewhat controlled, and is secure. Right now, there was an article in the journal today interviewing someone at Coronado Park who said that my things have been stolen for like the 20th time again. And it's because it's this constant, take this from that person, take this from that person, because there's no way to secure their goods. Your stuff is just out there in the open, it's gonna get taken. And so the safe outdoor space did kind of give the occupants that were there some sense of security. And to me, when it comes time for, let's say, enforcement action, you know, we've warned someone multiple times, you cannot camp here, you cannot camp here. Will you go to the shelter? And they say no. Well, will you enter in this program we're doing that over there you can camp? You can still have this tent over there, but you can't have it right here. And they say no to that. Well, at that point, we can start doing things like enforcing in good faith. They're trespassing on somebody's property. You know, they're constantly, you know, doing all these other minor crimes. You can start enforcing that in good faith. And I'm not saying we need to hammer the homeless with citations and arrests. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there has to be some kind of, you can go here, no, you won't go there. Okay, you can go here, you aren't going to go to that either. What do? We can't just continue moving you around. Something's got to be done. And I think, you know, you all kind of see that firsthand living in that area of it's the same people all the time. And it's the same people that my group and groups like me have gone out and tried to get them into housing for years with little progress. So at some point, something's got to give. And sometimes that does take maybe a behavioral health court appearance or a case manager that's appointed by the court, something to kind of push that person to move on, to kind of make progress.
Thank you.
Difficult situation.
One of the things Ms. Holguin stressed last time about safe outdoor spaces, it gives social service agents such as yourself the knowledge that, you know, the person you're dealing with is always going to be in space number 6.
Right.
So it allows for continuity and gives you the chance to have the multiple contacts with them to actually have a chance to make some motion, some movement forward.
That is an excellent point, and it's one that I neglected to mention. So my division does a lot of follow with people that have some kind of behavioral health diagnosis. We fail miserably with people who are unhoused because we cannot find them. So we might know, they tend to frequent the Northeast in this area, but finding them is like a needle in the haystack. Like they might be at Los Altos today, and then next week they're at Coronado, and then next week they're at the shelter. We don't see them often enough to get that trust and the rapport built to get them into services long term.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. Do you have any idea of when the actual date is? Has that been indicated? Just sometime in August?
Sometime in August is all I have. Nick, do you have anything? Because I don't know.
Sometime in August, so.
So at least firm it down to a date.
Once I have it, I can pass it out. I know I'll be meeting with Carol and Mariela from ACS and FCS on Friday. I'm not sure if they have a date or not, but if I get a date, I'm assuming we'll put it out to everyone right away.
I knew it was bad, but the descriptions that you gave and the fact that you said, Commander Dietzel, that it is a humanitarian crisis. I drive past it a lot, and I had no idea. I mean, I was being very naive. I didn't realize there was that much drugs, that much knifings. I knew about the murders, but I didn't know about the other stuff.
There's and part of the humanitarian crisis, and the hygiene stuff. I mean, you walk around Coronado Park, and now when people will just come out of their structure and poop right next to their tent, or they'll pee right next to their tent, and then later on that next morning, someone will move over and put their tent on it and not realize. So they're laying on someone's fecal matter, and it's happening all the time. So solid waste goes out daily and picks up whatever they can. But on those every other Wednesdays, they do that full cleanup. That's when they're picking up syringes, human waste, blood-soaked items, stuff used to ingest or inject narcotics. They're picking up a lot of paraphernalia, dirty clothes. People have been they'll poop and then they'll use some clothes, wipe their butt, and throw it on the floor. And so that's some of the other issues that I mean, not only the violence safety aspect, but the hygienic safety aspect.
You said something about that once, Commander Dietzel, that there was a cholera outbreak at one point. Am I right thinking that?
Yeah, pre-COVID, we narrowly missed a major hepatitis outbreak among the unhoused. Something like this, that kind of a situation is very possible when you have that many people all living together, close together, basically living in each other's excrement. Like it's always a possibility. And I encourage this group, if you're interested in these issues, I really recommend a book by Sam Quiones called The Least of Us. It came out about 1.5 years ago. It's basically talking about fentanyl and methamphetamine. And there's a whole chapter in that book talking about encampments and what goes on in these tents. And it's the closest depiction that I've seen to what solid waste sees, officers see, we see, outreach workers see, what goes on in these tents that I've ever seen. It's worth a read. I know the API, our library system has several copies. I really recommend this book if you're interested in these issues, because it gave all the background of how we got to today in a very kind of just laid it out there kind of fashion. And I'll put the information about that book in there. It's a good read. And not just because I'm quoted in it either. It's a good book. I didn't expect that. We did an interview with him. He was really great. But I learned a lot with what he wrote. He's written a lot of stuff about heroin use. That whole kind of opioid epidemic was the first half of it. The second half is this book, which is all about meth and fentanyl.
The least of us. The least of us. Well. So we've pretty much covered all the bases. And you might have more to say, Commander.
Yeah, I know, Laura's on to give some stats for your
Yeah.
specific neighborhood. I can give you some.
Well, she gives stats for the whole Valley Command.
Oh, okay,
We're all from different parts of the valley. This
okay.
is for the valley, not the.
Just as
Yeah.
well as part. Okay, and I mean, and then I haven't introduced myself, but I can do that after Laura,
Yeah.
talking about me real quick.
So, thank you so much, Commander Dietzel. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you, everybody, and I'm gonna jump off here. Have a great night, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
my cards are still my contact info. Essentially.
So let's have Laura.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't know why my video is not working, but I do have the property crimes for the whole Valley Area Command from 6/24 to 7/24. There was 1 burglary, all other, 23 commercial burglaries, 14 residential burglaries, 23 vehicle burglaries, 81 auto thefts, 25 recovered vehicles, 3 commercial robberies, and 4 robberies by gunpoint. Are there any questions on that?
Laura, where do you get these, statistics from?
I run them through a program called Crime View Dashboard, and the data is entered into there on a daily basis by the Albuquerque Police Department.
That's from calls for service and police reports too.
Crime View.
Yes, sir.
I know there are others, I'm just curious.
It's just that we have no idea what happens from month to month. We know the month to month, but we don't have a comparison.
And I can,
I think we. can do that.
And Rowan, you did,
Or you can discuss it.
So,
Rowan,
Laura,
you
yes.
did ask me to also read last month's crime stats that I ran from 5/16 to 6/16, just to give a comparison.
Mhm.
There were 22 commercial burglaries, 14 residential burglaries, 28 vehicle burglaries, 47 auto thefts, 26 recovered vehicles, 1 robbery by carjacking, 5 commercial robberies, and 2 robberies by gunpoint.
So how do those compare? Gone up, gone down?
They actually, the auto thefts definitely went up. The others, glancing at it, it looks to be about almost the same, maybe a little more this month.
Laura,
Are there any other?
Laura,
Yes?
this is Ruth Garcia. I would like to work with you. I mean, I do a lot of this for not only work, but for the volunteering efforts that we do with the district attorney's office. And it would be nice to start capturing this on a monthly basis to show trends. Is this for the command? Is this for, which includes certain area codes, or?
This is actually for the whole Valley Area Command. So it's from the river to the freeway, city limit to city limit, north to south. So it's the whole area command.
Okay.
That these property crimes are for.
and that's the way our system's pulled, and that's, so on our police reports, it's by area command and beat. So it pulls it into the valley. So like our beats start with a 2, southeast is 3, northeast is 4. So when it compiles it, it uses the district or beat number in there to put it within that area command. And that's how it's kind of separated. Go ahead, Laura, and then
Does anybody have any other questions on the property crimes? If not, we can go into questions if you have anything for the commander
so
regarding the valley.
to go into a little more depth for the year-to-date stuff. I had this run just because I was interested, and this was as of last week. We've gone down year-to-date from last year to this year on everything but robberies. So in 2021, aggravated assaults and batteries, and this is for the area command, we had 298. And at this point, this year, we're at 250, so we're down 16%. Robberies, we were at 80 this year, in 2021. And at this point this year, we're at 101, so we're up 26%. Sex crimes, we were at 68 in 2021, and we're at 62 now, so we're down 9%. For property crimes, auto burglary, we were at 550 in 2021 at this time. We're at 350 now, so we're down 36%. Auto theft, the last 2 months have been a little rough, but year to date in 21, we were at 483, and this year we're at 464, so we're down 4%. I mean, anything down is better than up.
Not when it involves my travel trailer, which was stolen last month.
That's even worse than your car. But burglary, just residential or commercial, it's we were at 312 in 2021, and we're at 307, so it's a decrease of 2%. Shoplifting, we were at 203 in 21, and we're at 155 this year, so a decrease of 24%. So we're trending down in a lot of areas. I mean, robberies are up, but some of the stuff that we're doing is increasing our patrols at some of those areas that have been robbed multiple times. I won't tell you where they're being used, but we have money trackers out there. So if somebody is robbed, it's similar to what they used to use in a bank. We can track money if it's been stolen. Bait cars, we have bait cars. Right now we have 2 in the Valley Area Command in areas that we've been hit really hard. We're adding additional license plate readers throughout the Valley Area Command. Specific to downtown, I have $1 million to increase lighting and add surveillance systems downtown. So I'm going to try and extend that a little bit closer to like the train tracks up until 12th Street, about to Harris to Silver, Gold. I mean, I've already kind of outlaid or laid out some of the stuff that needs lighting and surveillance cameras, specifically alleyways, some of the dark corners where we have a lot of fights and violent crimes after the bars let out on Friday and Saturday nights. So we're trying to be more visible, more proactive. Traffic stops this year versus last year, and everybody thinks, oh, it's just a traffic stop. But when you drive by and you see a police officer and you're about to do something bad, you're like, there's probably another one around here. So it kind of changes the mindset of certain people. And then when officers are stopping cars, yes, it's for a traffic violation, but we find a lot of stuff when we're not even looking. So you walk up and you see a gun or you see somebody stuff something and you start conversing with them. Like, what is that? Oh, it's dope. Not bad. Or you run them and they have felony warrants for murder out of Kentucky or New Mexico, and they never thought they would a license plate lamp would have got them. So year to date, in 21, we were at 3,400 traffic stops. This year we're at 6,800 traffic stops, so an increase of 95%. Calling out with suspicious individuals and the consensual stops, consensual encounters. If someone's in an area and we get a phone call, hey, this guy, I've seen him around here. It look like he's doing something that he should be doing in the neighborhood. So we'll go cruise around and we'll contact him. Those have gone up a lot, or proactive calls looking for, I mean, there's a lot of clues and cues that people put off, especially if they're walking down the street and they don't want to look at you, you're like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And then just keep looking. Hey, what's going on? You stop and say, "How's it going?" Start talking to them, and you're not detaining them. Hey, you're free to go. I just want to see how you're doing, see what's going on. I've never seen you. I've met you. I'm Nick. Are you from this neighborhood? No. How come you're all nervous to talk to me? Well, because I have warrants. Well, what are they for? And you can start conversing, building a rapport. And if it's something you can help them out with, and say, "Hey, you know what? It's a misdemeanor apartment. Where do you live at?" "I live here." "All right, I'm gonna give you a week to go take care of your warrant." "Oh, really? You do that? You're not gonna take me to jail?" "No, man, I don't want to take you to jail for a parking warrant, something you screwed up on. Either you forgot or is a $20 warrant. I don't want you to have to go to jail for that and me take up all my time when I gotta go get somebody that's robbing somebody or shooting somebody. So this is the deal. I'm gonna work it out with you. You go take care of your warrant and we'll talk in a week. If you don't have that warrant taken care of, I'm gonna take you to jail." "All right." And the next time you have it, "Hey, man, I don't have a warrant. I appreciate it. I was able to get a job. I did this." And that's kind of community policing in itself as well. I mean, we're not here to take everybody to jail. People have problems, people have issues. I mean, we all have it, no matter what job or occupation, or even if we're unemployed. We all have issues, and I mean, we're not here to ruin someone's day, and everyone thinks that police are here to ruin your day. But we're here to help everybody. I mean, and that if that's not taking somebody to jail for a petty warrant, well, they go take care of their family, or they've got a kid that they gotta go take care of. You work with them, same thing. Or if you take them to jail or you cite them, "Hey, I'll work with you in court, because I know these expensive tickets are gonna cost. So I'll help you out in court. I'll give you some time. I'll give you 3 months, 6 months, whatever the judge allows me to help you." That's how we have to do this. I mean, and for most part, the officers are doing that. There's black and white, and there's a little gray in the middle. I mean, a lot of our stuff is officer discretion when it comes to traffic citations. We can give warnings, a lot of education.
Speaking of traffic citations. No, not me. I didn't get one. I'm not trying to bribe him to forget it. No, my neighborhood association, we're the downtown neighborhoods. So Lomas runs through the middle of our neighborhood. There's been a lot of speed racing happening on Lomas now. And we were wondering, there's not a camera there, is there?
So there will be, if there isn't already, an automated speed camera on Central between Rio Grande and New York.
But not on Lomas.
No, but a lot of the problems are
They
going
start
westbound
on there,
on
yeah.
Lomas, and they make it through Rio Grande and continue driving like morons west on Central. And then they go hang out at the Frisco, at the old Circle K park or Kmart parking. And then they'll
At
go
least you can
eastbound.
bring that up, because I live at 17th and Lowlands, so I see them going in both directions.
Yeah,
And we're talking some cases 70, 80 miles an hour.
yeah, we've had some fails at 12 and
Absolutely
Central.
flying down.
I mean, 12 and Lomas. So I can get a hold of the traffic unit.
Mhm.
So Laura, I think we're good. If you want to hop off, then I'll just kind of go into a little bit of my background, and so you guys can get out of here at a reasonable hour. I
Yeah.
won't talk about myself.
Okay,
Hello.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Have a
But,
good night.
You too. So, my name is Nick Wheeler, the new area commander for the Valley. Prior to this job, or this position, I was in traffic, so I was in charge of all the motorcycle officers and the DWI officers, our abandoned vehicle unit and the hit and run unit. And automated speed enforcement, that was my baby from the inception, for this last period, that last 9 months or so. Prior to that, I was in the Valley for 11 years straight, so I've known pretty much everything going on in the Valley. I cruised through the Valley. It's my favorite area to command. That's why I was excited to come back as commander, because now I can kind of do things how I want to do them and see the growth and potential that the Valley has. I mean, you know, downtown, everybody thinks of downtown as just bars. Well, there's businesses, there's churches, there's people that live down there, so we have to look at it that way. It's not just the party area of the city, and that it's frustrating that everybody thinks that. Everybody gives it a bad name just because of that. So, and there's a lot of stuff everyone thinks of the valley as Coronado Park. That's all they think of when they think about the Valley Area Command. I'm like, that's crap. There's so much more to the Valley Area Command. There's so many people that care. And you know, I've worked in the Southeast, I've worked in the Northwest. And I've had a lot of people interact with the police, but in the Valley, people just seem to care so much about what's going on in their neighborhoods. And people call the police, not as much as I would like. If they saw something, they report it, but people like to call the police here because they see something suspicious. They want to protect their neighborhood. They want to protect their friends, their families. It's important to do that. And I want to be part of that. So I'm glad to be back down there. Automated speed. We have 9 cameras now. We had 10. One was stolen there at Letting Cornell. I don't know if you saw it on the news. It's irritating, but I know there are some conversations going to be happening over the next month or so about purchasing additional cameras and extending our contract. Right now, it's good for a year. And that started, the year started the end of last month, I believe. So we'll be able to kind of tweak it if we need to add more cameras, but having the traffic background and working with those folks, I'm able to kind of get them to help me a little easier. You know, the mayor created or allowed the department to create an additional motor squad, which works at night. And the night squad, their main focus is racing and bad driving. And they go out and catch racers all night. And, you know, there's only 4 of them on a bike, 4 officers and a supervisor on a bike, but they've made a heck of an impact on the racing community. They've made it where in the past, we would pull up 300, 400 cars would scatter. And you're like, well, which car do I go after? And then we would look at the ones that are actually racing, because before legislation was passed, I believe in 2015, that it wasn't illegal to spectate an illegal street race. Now it is. So whoever's around and gets stopped is getting a ticket. One of the other problems is we can't ID these people because they take off their plate prior to going into an area of racing, and then they speed off. So now we are able to set up spike belts because it meets our policy of aggravated fleeing, which is a felony crime. We can set up spike belts on avenues of escape. There's PA announcements. If you flee, your tires will be deflated by a tire deflation device. That's given all over. I mean, there was a video on the news when our folks did it recently, and people stopped fleeing because they're getting flat tires. And these drivers that are out here doing this illegal street racing pay a ton of money for their cars, or their parents do.
Are those specific areas of the city? Because the only thing I see on moments are, you know, 2 or 3 at a time, not the hundreds that you.
No, and they bounce all over the place. So if we hit one area really good, like Office and Singer, then they'll move, and then they won't go back there for a couple of weeks. And the ones on Lomas are the 2s and 3s. But if we have an area that have high rates of speed, you know, being a fatal crash investigator, 70 miles an hour, you're going to obliterate stuff. There's no chance. So we can bring out officers to conduct enforcement in those areas. And the motor officers have the time to do it because that's what they do. They do fatal and serious injury crash investigation and traffic enforcement. I'll tell you right now, motors from this time last year, they were at, I think, 9,000 citations for the division at this time last year. This year, they're already at 22,000 citations. So, and it correlates with the fatal crash and serious injury call-outs. So I think they're down 12 or 13 fatal crashes at this point right now versus where we were at 2021. And it goes hand in hand with the more traffic stops and visible enforcement, people start to slow down. So I can ask about that. Is there a specific time on Lomas, or is it all time?
You know, it's interesting. It really, we had 2 weeks ago, they did have, they had 4 police officers and they were pulling folks over, but I think it was like a Saturday morning or something like that, you know, or Sunday morning. Yeah, I think I tend to hear them more at night. So, you know, 7 to 9, 7 to 10. And it's in the central direction. I had one question about the robberies. Is there a correlation between an increase in the number of robberies as it relates to drug activity?
100%.
And so does one feed the other, or is it robberies are being committed because they're trying to
Get their
feed
next
their
fix. Yep.
drug habit? Is that,
Yep, or that, in a sense, yeah, so I need that money to go pay for some dope, or I'm gonna rob somebody of their personal property and we give it to a drug dealer because he takes property too. So it's 100% drug related. People not just doing it for fun, it's because they're trying to get either their family members a fix or themselves a fix. And the majority of drug dealers don't use their own stuff. I mean, there's some that do, but majority of them don't use drugs. They know what it does to people, so it's hard to sell drugs and make sure you're not getting ripped off if you're high. So I mean, yeah, it's 100% related to drug usage.
Oh, Dick, you wrote something?
Yes, let's see. Dick said, thanks to our two APD guests, it's heartening to hear law enforcement speak with genuine compassion about the unhoused. Good to hear from the folks who deal firsthand with what often seems to be an intractable problem, and that APD is searching for solutions which don't merely seek to place the issue in someone else's jurisdiction. It gives some hope the city can finally decide to get its act together and decide on a strategy, that there are folks on the street who will try to enact it with concern for those who will be most immediately affected.
I agree.
Okay, it is 7:33. Do you have anything? It is so cool to have you as commander.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Get rid of the
in that.
acting soon. It's nice to have you back in the valley.
thank you so much.
So, and if you guys have questions, I'll give you my card. They're old
Please.
cards, but they have my same contact info.
What
Yes,
happened to Commander Europe?
To Garrett. So, well, he's the commander still. They kind of did a little shuffle. So Commander Collins, who was in the foothills, went to internal affairs, or actually, he's the deputy superintendent of police report. So he got promoted. Deanne Otzenberger, who was a day shift lieutenant in the valley, moved into the acting commander role of the foothills. She has a lot of experience in the Northeast. So Sean moved to the valley, and Commander Greg Weber of the Northeast retired. So they decided to put Deanne to the Northeast because she has the most experience there and knows all the community organizations and the problems in the Northeast. Sean went back to the foothills where he spent the last 3 years as a lieutenant because he knows everything that's going on. And then they tapped me for the valley because I have the most experience in the valley. And I have the most experience with downtown, specifically because I was a supervisor of the bars for about 6 years. And I mean, Coronado Park, I worked a lot of outreach and a lot of different programs with Coronado Park years ago. And that's like when I came back to the valley, I was really depressed on how bad the park has gotten itself, like the grass and the greenery and the trees are dying or dead. So I was glad that they chose me to come here, but yeah, Sean's in the foothills.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for letting me know that we didn't need a motion to stand
No.
adjourned. We just stand adjourned.
Well, you don't need a second, but you do need a motion.
Okay,
Move we adjourn.
okay,
All in favor?
all in favor.
Aye.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like your card.
Yeah, I'll get you it.
Yeah, I'd like it too, because I want to get clarification for my neighborhood association.